One SOS call, and the Deathworlder fleet answered with fury. The crystalline spires of Novaris 7 glittered like frozen starlight against the purple horizon. Chief Engineer Naira Vex stood at her observation post, her iridescent scales shifting colors as she monitored the colony's energy grid. The Xylaxians had chosen this remote outpost specifically for its peaceful nature, a perfect match for their species' dedication to scientific advancement and harmonious living. 200 cycles of undisturbed research had made them complacent. The colony's 3,000 inhabitants focused on their studies of quantum crystallography, their natural ability to perceive energy patterns making them ideal researchers in this field. Their only defense was a basic shield system, designed more to protect against solar radiation than any actual threat. Chief Vex, the voice of her young apprentice, Chorus, crackled through the communication system. Multiple unknown vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not responding to identification protocols. Naira's dorsal crests flared with concern as she rushed to the central command hub. The massive holographic display showed 9 ships of irregular design, their hulls covered in what appeared to be improvised armor plating. Her heart sank as she recognized the infamous markings the Kraken Raiders, the most notorious pirates in the Outer Rim. "Send an emergency alert to the Galactic Assembly," she ordered, knowing full well that the nearest patrol was at least 6 days away. The Raiders had chosen their target well. The first impacts shook the colony before the evacuation protocols could even begin. The Raiders' weapons easily overwhelmed their minimal defenses, and soon the sound of boarding craft attaching to the outer hulls echoed through the structure. "Get everyone to the deep labs," Naira commanded, her voice steady despite the terror gripping her heart. "The crystal caverns might shield our life signs from their scanners." As her people rushed to safety, Naira made her way to the restricted archives. Behind a sealed panel lay a device that hadn't been touched since the colony's founding, an ancient emergency beacon operating on frequencies that predated the current galactic order. The stories about its origin were treated as myths by most Xylaxians, tales of a species so powerful they had to be quarantined, warriors born on a world that would kill most sentient beings. Humans, they were called Deathworlders. Another explosion rocked the facility. Through the security feeds, Naira watched the raiders methodically making their way through the colony. Their cybernetically enhanced bodies moved with cruel efficiency as they rounded up any Xylaxians too slow to reach the shelters. "They'll find us eventually," Chorus said, his scales turned a pale blue of despair. "The crystal's energy signature will give away the lab's location." Naira's claws hovered over the beacon's activation switch. Using it would violate dozens of assembly protocols. The quarantine of human space had stood for over a century, put in place after an incident that still sent chills through diplomatic circles, the complete annihilation of a hostile fleet that had dared attack a single human colony. "We're not warriors," she whispered, remembering the old warning about humans. "But perhaps that's exactly why we need them." With trembling fingers, she composed a message. "To any human vessels receiving this transmission. We are the Xylaxian research colony on Novaris 7. We are under attack by Kraken Raiders. We have no weapons, no defenses. There are 3,000 civilians, including children. Please, we need your help." She pressed send, watching as the signal pulsed out on the forbidden frequency. The Raiders were now only 2 levels above the Crystal Labs. Even if the humans received the message, even if they chose to respond, would they arrive in time? A massive explosion from the upper levels answered her question. The Raiders had found the main power core and were destroying it section by section. Without it, the environmental systems would fail within hours. They were going to die here, either by the Raiders' weapons or by slow suffocation. Chief Vex, one of her technicians, called out, "Something's happening in orbit." The long-range sensors showed spatial distortions forming at the edge of the system. Not the chaotic tears of normal hyperspace travel, but precise, controlled ruptures in spacetime itself. From these wounds in reality emerged ships unlike anything Naira had ever seen. Sleek, angular vessels covered in weapon systems that spoke of centuries of warfare. Their hulls bore scars and markings that told stories of countless battles. But it was their formation that struck Naira most. They moved like predators, coordinated and purposeful. The human fleet had arrived. As Naira watched the sensor readings, she felt a mix of terror and hope. The humans hadn't bothered with warnings or demands. Their ships accelerated to attack velocity the moment they emerged from their spatial rifts, weapons already charging. The myths, it seemed, had been wrong about one thing. Humans weren't simply warriors born from a harsh world. They were protectors who had learned that sometimes peace must be defended with overwhelming force. The Raiders were about to learn exactly why the galaxy had quarantined these Deathworlders. And Naira, along with her entire people, would soon understand why reaching out to humanity had been both the most dangerous and most necessary decision of her life. Captain Marcus Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the UES Stormbreaker, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays. 30 years of service had left their mark, a scar running down his left temple, eyes that had seen too many battles, and the quiet confidence of a veteran commander. Signal analysis confirmed, Captain, Lieutenant Jun Park reported from her communications station. It's a genuine distress call on the old emergency band, Xylaxian Research Colony under attack by Kraken Raiders. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. The Raiders had grown bolder in recent years, taking advantage of the Assembly's bureaucratic paralysis to terrorize the Outer Rim. But attacking a research colony, that was a new low even for them. How many civilian lives? He asked, though his decision was already made. Colony records show 3,000, sir, mostly scientists and their families. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what responding meant, violating the quarantine that had kept humanity isolated from galactic affairs for over a century. Breaking that barrier would have consequences far beyond this single rescue mission. Send word to the battle group, Hawthorne ordered. All ships prepare for emergency jump, Combat Protocol Sigma 7. His XO, Commander Danica Torres, stepped closer. Sir, the Assembly protocols. Can go to hell, Hawthorne finished. We swore an oath to protect Commander, not to hide behind political barriers while innocents die. The Stormbreaker's battle group consisted of 7 ships, 3 heavy cruisers and 4 rapid response destroyers. Not the largest force in the human fleet, but more than enough to deal with raiders. Each vessel carried the most advanced weapons humanity had developed during their isolation, systems that would shock those who thought they knew what humans were capable of. All ships report ready, Torres announced. Battle group forming up. Hawthorne activated the fleet-wide comm. This is Captain Hawthorne. In about 5 minutes, we're going to break every diplomatic protocol in the book. We're going to engage an enemy in assembly space, violate a 100-year quarantine, and probably start an interstellar incident. He paused, looking at the determined faces of his crew. We're also going to save 3,000 lives. That's what matters. That's what we do. Battle stations, all hands. The human fleet tore through space-time, their quantum drives creating precisely controlled rifts that allowed them to bypass normal hyperspace limitations. The technology was far beyond anything the Assembly had access to, one of many advances humanity had made during their isolation. They emerged from the rifts in perfect attack formation, sensors immediately locking onto the raider vessels. Hawthorne's tactical display showed 9 enemy ships, their shields already weakened from bombarding the colony. Launch Valkyrie squadrons, he ordered. Target their engine cores and weapons systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need answers about why they chose this target. The Valkyrie fighters streaked from their launch bays, piloted by both AI systems and human crews working in perfect synchronization. Another innovation born from humanity's unique approach to warfare. Instead of fearing artificial intelligence like the Assembly did, they had embraced it as partners. Sir, Torres called out, getting life sign readings from the colony. Most of the population appears to be gathered in some kind of underground facility, but their life support systems are failing. Ground Team Alpha, prepare for immediate deployment, Hawthorne commanded. Medical units and engineering support. Lieutenant Park, establish communication with the colony's leadership. The battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. The raiders, accustomed to preying on defenseless targets, found themselves facing an enemy that had spent centuries preparing for exactly this kind of engagement. The Valkyrie squadrons disabled 3 ships in the first pass, their quantum-tipped missiles bypassing shields designed to stop conventional weapons. Captain Park's voice was urgent. I've made contact with their chief engineer, Naira Vex. The raiders have reached their main power core. They're deliberately destroying it section by section. Hawthorne's expression darkened. Patch her through. The holographic display showed a being with iridescent scales and elegant features, her expression a mixture of fear and hope. This is Chief Vex. Are you really human? Captain Marcus Hawthorne, UES Stormbreaker, we received your call, Chief. Help is already on the way. Can you hold out for another 10 minutes? The raiders are systematically destroying our infrastructure, Naira reported. When the power core fails completely, we'll lose life support in the shelters. Keep your people calm, Chief. We're not losing anyone today. As if to emphasize his words, another raider ship went dark, its systems overloaded by a precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse. The remaining vessels were trying to retreat, but found themselves caught in the Stormbreaker's gravity web, yet another technology that would revolutionize space combat once revealed to the wider galaxy. Ground Team Alpha away, Torres reported. They'll reach the colony's main access point in 7 minutes. Hawthorne watched as the last raider ship attempted a desperate ramming maneuver against the Stormbreaker. The ship's automated defense systems swatted it aside like an annoying insect, structural integrity fields, ensuring that even this act of suicide would fail. Sir, Park called out, we're receiving transmissions from assembly vessels. Multiple diplomatic channels. Of course we are, Hawthorne muttered. Record them all, let them see exactly what happened here, let them see what their inaction led to. The battle was over in less than 15 minutes. 7 raider ships disabled, 2 destroyed by their own desperate tactics. But Hawthorne knew this was just the beginning. The real fight, the political fallout from breaking quarantine, was about to begin. As ground teams rushed to stabilize the colony's systems and treat the injured, Hawthorne prepared his report for Fleet Command. He would face consequences for this decision, but looking at the grateful faces of the rescued Xylaxians, he knew he'd make the same choice again. Humanity had hidden long enough. Perhaps it was time to show the galaxy that being feared as Deathworlders didn't mean they couldn't also be its greatest protectors. Major Zara Patel's combat armor sealed with a soft hiss as she led Ground Team Alpha through the Xylaxian colony's twisted corridors. 20 years of special operations experience had taught her that rescue missions were often more complicated than they appeared. The raiders' systematic destruction of the colony's infrastructure suggested they weren't just here for random plunder. Life signs ahead, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kai Nakamura, reported through the tactical network. Multiple hostiles moving toward the Crystal Labs. Zara's augmented reality display highlighted the enemy positions in red, while the huddled groups of Xylaxian civilians appeared as blue clusters deeper in the facility. The raiders had them trapped, methodically working their way down to the shelters. Team 2, circle around through the maintenance shafts, she ordered. Team 3, hold position at Junction C, we're going to funnel them right into our kill zone. The human soldiers moved with practiced precision, their powered armor allowing them to navigate the damaged sections of the colony with ease. Each suit was a masterpiece of engineering, combining strength enhancement, advanced sensors, and medical systems that could keep a soldier fighting even with severe injuries. Major, Captain Hawthorne's voice came through her comm, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the Crystal Labs. Whatever the raiders are after, it's not just the civilians. Zara's team encountered their first group of raiders at a collapsed security checkpoint. The cybernetically enhanced pirates opened fire immediately, their weapons designed to cause maximum pain and suffering. Against civilian targets, they would have been devastating. Against human combat armor, they were barely an annoyance. Non-lethal takedowns only, Zara reminded her team. We need prisoners for interrogation. The fight was brutally short. The raiders, used to terrorizing defenseless scientists, found themselves facing soldiers born on a death world, trained from birth to excel in combat. Team Alpha's sonic stunners and neural disruptors dropped them before they could even switch weapon settings. Ma'am, Nakamura called out, you need to see this. One of the raiders had a detailed scan of the Crystal Labs layout. They knew exactly what they were looking for before they attacked. Zara examined the data pad. The raiders had marked specific storage units in the deep labs, ones containing specially grown quantum crystals. But these weren't just any crystals. According to the notes, they were part of some kind of classified research project. Captain, she reported, this wasn't a random raid. They were sent here specifically to steal research materials. Someone gave them inside information. Understood, Major. Be advised, we're picking up assembly peacekeeping vessels entering the system. Try to wrap this up before the politicians arrive. The team pushed deeper into the colony, encountering increasingly desperate resistance. The raiders seemed almost frantic to reach the Crystal Labs now that they knew human forces were involved. Whatever they were after, they were willing to die for it. At the entrance to the main lab complex, they found Chief Engineer Naira Vex trying to seal the blast doors. Her scales had turned a deep purple with stress, but her hands moved steadily over the controls. "The Raiders," she said without looking up, "they're trying to reach the phase shift crystals. We've been developing them in secret against assembly regulations. They could revolutionize faster-than-light travel, but in the wrong hands. They could also be weaponized," Zara finished. She'd seen enough experimental technology in her career to know how quantum mechanics could be turned deadly. "How many hostiles inside?" "At least 12, led by someone different. Their commander, I think, he knew things about our research that only assembly members should know." Zara's tactical display updated with new heat signatures. The raiders had gathered near the central crystal storage, probably preparing for a last stand. But something about their formation bothered her. It was too professional, too practiced for common pirates. "Team 2, breach from the upper maintenance level," she ordered. "Team 3, stand by with containment fields. Lieutenant, prep the EMF grenades. Let's see how their cybernetics handle a targeted pulse." The battle for the crystal labs unfolded in seconds. Team 2 crashed through the ceiling panels as Zara's squad breached the main doors. The raiders responded with coordinated fire that spoke of military training. These weren't pirates, they were soldiers disguised as raiders. "Assembly weapons," Nakamura shouted as particle beams sliced through the air. "They're using restricted military tech." The revelation hit Zara even as she dove for cover. This wasn't just about stealing research, it was about framing the raiders for an official assembly operation. Someone in the government wanted these crystals badly enough to massacre civilians for them. "All teams switch to lethal force," she commanded. "These are professional soldiers, not pirates." The firefight transformed into a brutal close-quarters battle. The false raiders fought with the desperation of cornered Spec Ops troops, but they hadn't counted on facing real Deathworlders. Human combat doctrine had been forged in centuries of warfare, refined by fighting on a planet that tried to kill them daily. When it was over, the lab was a mess of shattered crystal fragments and disabled enemies. Only their commander remained conscious, his cybernetic enhancements sparking from the EMF damage. Zara approached him slowly, her armor's sensors already confirming what she suspected: assembly military-grade augmentations. "Who authorized this?" she demanded, removing his mask to reveal the distinctive markings of an assembly security force operative. "Who sent you to massacre civilians?" The commander spat blood, his enhanced body already trying to purge the EMF damage. "You don't understand what you've done, human. These crystals, they could change everything. The power balance, the quarantine, all of it." "Major," Captain Hawthorne's voice cut in, "assembly diplomatic vessels are demanding immediate access to the colony. They're claiming jurisdiction over what they're calling a domestic security matter." Zara looked at the wounded operative, then at Naira Vex, who stood trembling among the ruins of her life's work. The truth would come out now, one way or another. Humanity hadn't just broken quarantine, they'd stumbled into a conspiracy that went to the heart of the assembly itself. "Secure all survivors and evidence," she ordered her team. "Something tells me Fleet Command is going to be very interested in what we've found here. The assembly wants to play political games? Fine. Let's show them how humans handle conspiracies that threaten innocent lives." Fleet Admiral Reza Vahidi stood before the Emergency Council of Human Military Command, his holographic presence projected from the UES Stormbreaker. Behind him, tactical displays showed the growing standoff above Novaris 7. 3 human warships faced off against 7 assembly diplomatic vessels, all heavily armed despite their official designation. "The evidence is conclusive," he stated, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years of military service. "The recovered quantum crystals were part of an illegal weapons research program. The Assembly's security forces staged this raid to acquire the technology while maintaining plausible deniability." The council chamber, deep within humanity's fortress world of New Terra, fell silent as the implications sank in. Director of Intelligence Olivia Chen spoke first, her augmented eyes scanning through streams of data. "Our analysis of the captured operative's neural implants confirms it. This goes beyond the security forces. We're looking at involvement from the highest levels of the Assembly's Military Advisory Board." Outside the Xylaxian colony, tension mounted. The Assembly ships had taken up attack positions, claiming they were there to maintain order and investigate potential human interference in internal matters. Captain Hawthorne watched them from the Stormbreaker's bridge, noting how their weapon systems remained powered despite their diplomatic protests. "They're not here for peace talks," he communicated to Admiral Vahidi. "They're here to clean up evidence." The Admiral's response was immediate. "Deploy the Ghost Protocol. Let's show them what a century of isolation has taught us about warfare." Throughout the human fleet, advanced stealth systems activated. Technology that had been developed in secret, preparing for the day when humanity would need to defend itself against the entire assembly. Quantum field generators created localized spacetime distortions, making the ships virtually invisible to conventional sensors. "Sir," Lieutenant Park reported, "assembly vessels are launching fighters. They're claiming it's a standard security measure." Hawthorne's tactical display highlighted the approaching craft. Their energy signatures matched known assembly weapon systems, but something was off. The patterns were too aggressive for a diplomatic escort. "They're planning to attack the colony," Major Patel's voice cut in from the surface. "We intercepted encrypted communications. They're going to claim the Xylaxians were developing illegal weapons, justify destroying the entire facility." In the council chamber, Admiral Vahidi presented the final piece of evidence. Quantum frequency analyzes proving the crystals were designed for faster-than-light travel, not weapons. The Assembly's claims were a cover-up, meant to hide their own illegal research. "We have two choices," Vahidi declared. "We can withdraw, maintain our isolation, and allow the Assembly to murder 3,000 innocent civilians to cover their tracks. Or we can take a stand here and now and show the galaxy what humanity really stands for." The Council's vote was unanimous. "Captain Hawthorne," Vahidi ordered, "initiate Operation Daybreak." The human fleet's response was immediate and overwhelming. Hidden quantum drones, deployed hours earlier, suddenly activated throughout the system. Each one carried advanced electronic warfare systems, capable of disrupting the assembly ship's neural interfaces and weapon controls. "All ships implement tactical pattern echo," Hawthorne commanded. "Non-lethal takedowns only. We're making a point, not starting a war." The assembly fighters found themselves confronting an enemy they couldn't see or target. Human Valkyrie squadrons, guided by hybrid AI systems far more advanced than anything the assembly possessed, disabled them with precise electromagnetic pulses. On the surface, Major Patel's team secured the Crystal Labs, working with Chief Vex to protect the research data. "The assembly needs to understand," Naira said as they worked, her scales now a determined gold color. "We developed this technology to help people to make travel between worlds easier. We never wanted it to become a weapon." The battle in orbit lasted less than 20 minutes. The assembly ships, their systems paralyzed by technology they hadn't known existed, could only watch as human boarding teams secured their bridges. Each capture revealed more evidence of the conspiracy orders signed by high-ranking assembly officials, tactical plans for the false raider attack, contingency protocols for eliminating witnesses. "Send everything to the Galactic media networks," Admiral Vahidi ordered. "All of it. Let every species in the assembly see what their leadership was willing to do." The revelation shook the galactic political structure to its core. Humanity hadn't just broken quarantine, they had exposed a level of corruption that threatened the assembly's very foundation. In the colony's main conference room, now serving as an emergency command center, Captain Hawthorne met with Chief Vex and the colony's leadership. "The assembly will try to spin this," he warned. "They'll claim we interfered in their jurisdiction, that we violated the quarantine without cause." Naira's response was immediate. "We'll speak for you. Every Xylaxian in this colony will testify about what happened here, about how humans came when no one else would, how you risked everything to save people you'd never met." The human ships maintained their defensive position around Novaris 7 as more assembly vessels arrived. But now they weren't hiding. Now they wanted to be seen. Each ship broadcasted its presence proudly, a clear message to the galaxy: humanity was done hiding in isolation. They would stand as protectors, not conquerors. "The assembly leadership is calling for an emergency session," Lieutenant Park reported. "They're demanding we withdraw immediately." Hawthorne shared a look with Admiral Vahidi's hologram. "Send them our response. We'll withdraw when the Xylaxians are safe, when those responsible for this attack face justice, and when the assembly acknowledges that humanity's quarantine was based on fear, not fact." The message was clear. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The galaxy would have to accept them not as the monsters they'd been painted as, but as what they truly were: defenders of those who couldn't defend themselves. The Assembly's Grand Chamber on Centaurus Prime had never seen anything like this. Representatives from over 500 species filled the ancient hall, their voices a mix of outrage, fear, and reluctant admiration. At the center of the storm stood two figures, Fleet Admiral Vahidi in his pristine black uniform and Chief Engineer Naira Vex, her scales shimmering with determination. Behind them, a holographic display showed the events at Novaris 7 in unflinching detail. The false raider attack, the Assembly forces' attempted massacre, the human fleet's intervention, most damning of all, the classified documents proving high-level Assembly officials had orchestrated everything. "We developed the phase shift crystals to help people," Naira testified, her voice carrying across the chamber, "to make space travel safer, more efficient. But when certain Assembly officials learned of our breakthrough, they saw only weapons. When we refused to weaponize our research, they planned to take it by force." The Assembly's High Chancellor, a towering Meridian named Vorex, leaned forward on his gravity throne. "And yet it was the humans who violated our most sacred laws, who broke a quarantine that has kept peace for a century." Admiral Vahidi stepped forward, his weathered face displaying none of the exhaustion from days of diplomatic battles. "A quarantine based on fear and lies. You isolated humanity not because we were a threat, but because we represented change, because we solved problems in ways that frightened you." The chamber erupted in protests, but Vahidi continued. "Look at the evidence. While you hid behind regulations, pirates terrorized your outer colonies. While you debated procedures, corrupt officials planned mass murder. Humanity didn't break your quarantine to conquer or destroy, we broke it to protect those who needed help." On the massive screens above, new footage began playing. Not of the battle, but of its aftermath. Human medical teams treating injured Xylaxians. Engineering crews rebuilding damaged infrastructure. Marines sharing rations with frightened civilian families. "This is who we are," Vahidi declared. "Yes, we come from a harsh world. Yes, we develop technologies that seem aggressive to you. But we did it to survive, to protect, to ensure that what happened to us never happens to others." In orbit around Novaris 7, Captain Hawthorne watched the proceedings from the Stormbreaker's bridge. Beside him, Major Patel and her ground team stood ready. The Assembly fleet still surrounded the colony, but now they were joined by ships from dozens of independent worlds, allies who had seen humanity's actions and chosen to stand with them. "Movement in the outer system," Lieutenant Park reported. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. It's the Xylaxian Defense Force. They're broadcasting support for the colony and demanding Assembly forces withdraw." The political landscape was shifting by the hour. More species were coming forward with their own stories of Assembly corruption and neglect. The quarantine hadn't just isolated humanity, it had prevented them from helping worlds that desperately needed protection. Back in the Grand Chamber, Chief Vex revealed the final piece of evidence. "The phase shift crystals were never meant to be weapons. They were meant to be shared. My team has already transmitted our research to human scientists. Together, we're developing a new form of faster-than-light travel that will be available to all species." The announcement sent shockwaves through the Assembly. Humanity and the Xylaxians working together. It represented everything the Old Guard had feared: collaboration, innovation, change. Admiral Vahidi seized the moment. "We propose an end to the quarantine, but not without conditions. Humanity will return to galactic affairs as an independent force, not under Assembly control but as partners. We'll establish a new organization, the Interstellar Protection Force. Any world that needs help can call on us regardless of political boundaries." "And if we refuse," Chancellor Vorex challenged. "Then we'll protect them anyway," Vahidi replied calmly. "As we protected Novaris 7, the age of standing by while innocents suffer is over." The debate raged for days, but the outcome was inevitable. Too many worlds had seen what humanity could do, what they stood for. The quarantine had painted them as monsters to be feared. Reality had shown them to be guardians who would face any odds to protect those in need. 1 month later, Captain Hawthorne stood on the Stormbreaker's observation deck, watching as construction began on the new Interstellar Protection Force headquarters in orbit around Novaris 7. The facility would serve as both a training center and a rapid response base, combining human military expertise with Xylaxian crystal technology. "The first joint patrol ships launch tomorrow," Major Patel reported, joining him at the window. "Mixed crews, human, Xylaxian, and volunteers from 30 other species. They're calling us teachers now, not Deathworlders." They'll still fear us, Hawthorne mused, watching a group of Xylaxian engineers working alongside human technicians. Some of them at least. Good, Patel replied with a slight smile. Sometimes a little fear is useful as long as it's the right kind. Not fear of destruction, but fear of disappointing those who would give everything to protect you. In her lab below, Chief Vex worked with human scientists, exploring new applications for the phase shift crystals. Their research would revolutionize space travel, but more importantly, it represented a new era of cooperation. The galaxy was changing. The old assembly order was crumbling, replaced by something more dynamic, more just. And at its heart stood humanity, no longer isolated, no longer feared as mindless warriors, but respected as what they had always truly been. Protectors who had learned from their harsh world not just how to survive, but how to ensure others could thrive. A new distress call came in, this time from a mining outpost in the Perseus Arm. Without hesitation, the Stormbreaker and its battle group prepared for emergency jump. They had made a promise to the galaxy, and humanity always kept its promises. The age of isolation was over. The age of protection had begun.